Welcome to the AGO Fischers of Men podcast. I am your host and Eastern District Counselor, Brandon Quake Schaefer, along with my co-host and National Operations Advisor, Skylar Ron Burgundy Marsh. And together we are interviewing actives, alumni, and leaders in order to better impact the AGO world.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to our third episode of the Fischers of Men podcast. We are currently in the height of rush, so lots going on in the life of the fraternity. Some chapters are still in the thick of rush, but we're starting to get some final numbers back from chapters, and it's been really encouraging. The home chapter of our special guest today is the USC chapter, and I'm pleased to announce they have extended 13 bids. 13 new pledges coming on this semester. So please just continue to keep all these guys in your prayers. Pray for AGO at 12 when you think of it. So on to the star of the show. Today we have on a kind, sincere, down-to-earth man, Nathan Hue. Mr. Hue, how are you on this fine morning?
It's great, man. Well, morning for me, afternoon for you. It's good to be here.
Great to have you. And I was going to mention that for Nathan. Nathan is on Hawaiian time, which is 6 hours behind us. So for Brandon and myself, it's 2:45 or almost 3 at this point. So it's about 9 o'clock for you, if
9 o'clock
I'm
in the morning.
doing
Yeah.
the math correctly. So Nathan, thanks for hopping on with us. Nathan, you were one of the first people I got to meet when I actually took on this job. I was out training in Los Angeles, and Nathan was kind enough to grab lunch with me, share his experience with AGO. And I remember we talked a lot about your upbringing, your current job at the time, which was working for USC. We talked about how you play the saxophone. Have to get an update on that a little bit later if that's still something you're doing. But I was sort of a stranger in a foreign land, but you were really welcoming to me, and you were at that time you were pretty involved with the Pi chapter, mentoring guys, sort of in an unofficial capacity, but it was just spoke to your character and just care for guys and wanting to disciple and lead kind of the next generation. So I felt really welcomed and encouraged by you when I was over there. So I thank you for that.
Thanks, I appreciate
So
it.
yeah.
I'm encouraged by you too. So, it goes both ways. Yeah.
Mutual encouragement. So as I mentioned, Nathan came to California for school, but was born in Hawaii, and then worked for USC post-graduation, and now has since moved back to Hawaii. So Nathan, talk to us about growing up in Hawaii. I got to be honest, it seems like it'd be a fairy tale living in Hawaii, but we got to ask you, can you debunk some of these Hawaii stereotypes for us? Like, does everybody surf all day? Does everybody consume coconuts on the daily? Break things
Well,
down for
I
us.
I wish I got to surf all day. I will say I learned how to surf when I was about 4 or 5. My dad taught me how.
Oh yeah.
But it's something that's handed down, I think. A lot of people don't surf. It's not their thing, right? A lot of people fish, a lot of people, go hiking. But growing up, I was definitely a water guy. I played water polo, I swam, I went to the beach with my friends all the time, boogie boarding. Believe it or not, like even in school, like my senior year in high school, we had off-campus privileges, and so we did go surfing during lunch and our free periods quite a bit. So it was always a good time. But I feel like personally, I'm not a fan of coconut water. But I will say that, we have the best fruits ever. You cannot compare to Hawaiian Kona coffee. That's a thing here as well.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, it's a good time, man. It's definitely the dream living here, being back here, where I'm from, where I was born and raised. It's a really cool place.
And is your family originally from Hawaii? And is your family still living in Hawaii?
Yeah, my parents live here. My grandparents live here. I'm a fourth generation Japanese American. That my family is from Japan, but fourth generation, like I said. A lot of my family actually lives in Oregon, in Eugene and Portland. Some live up in Washington, but myself, my two brothers, and my parents, grandparents, we all live here.
That's great. Well, it's funny to hear you say, for lunch break, you'd go and surf. Back here, we'd say, lunch break at my high school was, go to McDonald's or something and get food and come back. And
Oh yeah, no, the
so,
beach is probably about 3 minute drive from here. This is so I work at the school that I went to. Yeah, so it's yeah, 3 minute drive.
well, hey,
Waikiki, you ever heard about it? It's the famous one with the diamond head in the background,
oh
a
yeah,
nice sunset every day. That's the one that's right here.
that's the one, Waikiki. Yeah. Wow. Oh my gosh. Okay, so you're right down the road. Wow,
Yeah.
that's incredible. And you mentioned where you're working at. I want to kind of come back to that and hear about your current job. But backtracking a little bit, what actually brought you all the way to California for school? What made you decide on USC?
Yeah, that's a good question. My senior year of high school, I was just deciding, where I wanted to go based on fit, based on location. I did want to stay a little bit closer to home, but there was a little bit of a sense of, I want to experience something different. I lived in Hawaii all my life. Maybe it's a good opportunity to go somewhere else for school. And so I decided to go to California, like I said, because it is that balance of being close to home, but also it's somewhere different. At the same time, I feel like people in LA are very similar to people here. People here are super friendly, super nice, very welcoming, and I felt the same way in LA. It's a very diverse city, very, very welcoming people, very friendly people who love to surf, among other things, right? And so, I feel like I fit right in LA, and USC in particular I mean, I was in the marching band, I was doing other stuff, but it was very much a blessing in disguise to go to USC because I think there were so many opportunities that I didn't know about before going to college, AGO being one of them. But, there were so many opportunities to make the school your own, even though it's a big school, there are many, many different opportunities to get to know everybody on a deeper level. There's a bunch of different ministries, there's a bunch of different just ways to get involved on campus. And so I felt like it was a really good opportunity to take advantage of all the large school resources that USC had, but also make it my own and study what I wanted to study and do what I wanted to do. So
Mm.
also doesn't hurt that, the food's great there. There's
Mm.
Disneyland right down the street. There's a bunch of other things about LA too, but
Yeah, can't beat that. Yeah, I remember this past year I did some travel after Founders Day up to San Francisco from LA, and it was
Mhm.
sort of the first time experiencing that part of the country further than LA. LA was sort of the only spot I had been around, and so to travel up, I had this. I don't know what it was, but in my mind, I was thinking everybody in California is just trying to get somewhere, and people are going to be rude on the street on the roads, and everybody was so friendly. People would like stop traffic, they'd let you in. I was
Yeah.
super shocked by that. And everybody people I interacted with, super kind.
Yeah.
So I
Well,
think
and
there's a
it's a beautiful
misconception.
drive too. I
Yes.
hope you enjoyed it. Some of my favorite memories with the AGO guys are on that drive.
Oh yeah.
We'd go up for the weekender. I'm sure we'll talk about everything a little bit, but we would go up on the weekender from LA and we would visit Cal and Stanford. So
Hmm.
sometimes we'd stay over with the beta chapter at Cal, but yeah, we would do some brotherhood retreats up in Northern California. We'd go to football games with the Cal guys. It was always a great time, and we'd always stop at that one Kettleman In and Out. There's just certain traditions that we had at Pi, that I know that they're still doing, and the
Hmm.
weekender and traveling up to the Bay Area is one of them. Yeah.
That's so great. I know some of Brandon and our favorite memories are traveling and hanging with the other chapters. There's just nothing like it. Some really great memories from that. So love to hear that the Pi chapter is really still engaging with those types of things and making that priority to visit other chapters and stuff. So that's great.
Yeah, we're kind of starting to hit on some of your involvement with AGO, but how did you get introduced to AGO, and what was the chapter like at USC when you joined?
Yeah, good question. It was an act of God, honestly. So as I alluded to, I was in the USC marching band. And this was my first semester of freshman year of college. And the marching band was probably about 350 or 400 people. And so, we for those of you who haven't been to a USC football game before, I mean, they live up to the hype. They really do, especially now that Lincoln Riley's in town. But before the game starts, we always spell out USC as our first formation and then Trojans as a second formation. And when we spelled out USC, so I played saxophone as Skylar mentioned, but when we spelled out USC, right next to me there was a cymbal player, and like I said, this is a band of 350 people, okay, and the cymbal player would always come and talk to me, and he was a junior, I was a freshman, but for whatever reason he would come and talk to me. He was always very friendly, and then he one day after rehearsal was like, "Hey, I heard that you were looking to get involved in the Trojan Marching Band Bible study. It's called TM Beloved. I was wondering if you also wanted to check out something else called AGO." And I was like, "Oh, okay, sure, why not?" I feel like band gave me a good sense of community and great people. And I was like, I'm a freshman, why not? I'll go and meet up with some people. And so he got me to go because their rush event that night was free In-N-Out. So I was like, I've never had In-N-Out before. And I feel like you'll hear this story a lot from the different people who rush AGO. They went for the free food and they came out with brotherhood, right?
That's a
And
quote.
so, yeah, like I said, they got me with In-N-Out. He brought me there, and I had a really, really great time. I met these two guys, Jeff and Teddy. They're fantastic. I still keep in touch with them to this day. Like last year for spring break, I went to go visit Teddy in Houston, but they're all really genuine, solid guys. And just by the very fact that, like I said, that guy in the band was right next to me, even though we didn't even play the same instrument, and he invited me out. Like that was really cool. Like I said, act of God, totally. That guy ended up being my big bro in AGO. His name is Jason. His pledge name is Sprinkles. But he was the guy who pretty much like single-handedly, like I told him this over and over again, like God definitely works in his life. If you ever hear his testimony, like there's no way that he would be where he is without God. And I feel like he definitely showed me like what the gospel meant, and he took me through step by step, like what does the gospel mean, what does it mean that Jesus died for you, what does it mean that he rose on the third day, like all of the very basic things that I didn't really grow up hearing that much. He walked me through all of that, and ever since then, right, that's why I decided to get so involved in AGOs, because I saw how much the guys cared for each other, and I saw truly that Pi chapter had great brotherhood. I mean, there was maybe 25 or 30 guys at the time. We had an 80 Chi at the time as well, and so it's a really, really solid place.
So how did you evolve? If you could talk about like the evolution of when you began at AGO and then how you left AGO, what would you say? Like,
Yeah.
how do you feel like you changed in that time with the Lord or just as a person? What would you say were some big
So many ways. So many ways. So like I said, during my pledge semester, Jason really helped me to understand what the gospel meant. And I think after that, okay, so that was my spring semester of freshman year. So that's spring 2019. The semester ended in May. And then in July of that year, I got baptized actually back here at my home church in Hawaii. And so, I definitely wouldn't have come to that decision without the pledge process and without Jason kind of walking me through that, without the other guys, leading the pledge Bible study, without the alumni there to support me. I wouldn't have come to that decision for sure. And actually, at my baptism is really cool because some of the people who were in AGO at the time actually happened to be in Hawaii. And so they were here for the baptism, which was really cool.
Gosh.
Besides that, I ended up becoming a big bro for two different people, Jonathan and Jordan. And growing up, I was the youngest of three brothers. And so I never had the chance to mentor somebody else or lead somebody else through their faith or really through life in general. I'd be lying if I said that it wasn't a challenge to be a big bro, definitely. I mean, not saying that Jordan and Jonathan are challenging people, but it's really, it pushes you to be at your best when you're trying to be a mentor for others, and it forces you to be in a good place with the Lord, to do your daily devotionals, to pray at noon like you mentioned earlier, to get into those good habits and to really make your faith your own. And so I think that whole process and walking Jonathan and Jordan through what they were going at their respective times, that changed me a lot in terms of the way I look at life, in terms of the way I mentor other people, even in this job, right? My job, we'll get into it a little bit, but a lot of it is mentoring students. And I think a lot of what I do in this job now, I learned through AGO and being a big bro. I was also, I had the opportunity to serve as social chair and vice president. That was my sophomore year. That was during COVID. Try being the social chair during COVID. That was a time, man. But again, I think it just taught me how to be a team player, how to work on a team, how to work with the president, Remy at the time, and how to support him as best as I could, how to make sure that we strengthened our relationship with 80 Chi and the other fraternities and sororities in the row. When I was president, just leading other men, like we talked about earlier, and being pledge master. I think that was my favorite time in AGO because that's the time when it really came full circle. It was my second semester senior year, and just to see kind of how at least our chapter had grown in terms of faith, in terms of just the way that people treat each other and the way that they study God's word. It was really encouraging to see. But I think through all of it, it was a bunch of leadership skills. It was a bunch of, learning how to communicate and mentor other people. And it was so rewarding, I think. And like I said, a lot of how I do my job to this day was shaped by my experience.
What a testimony. And I can tell you that I met with Jonathan, your little bro, I don't know when this was, but he spoke so highly of you, Nathan. When I met with him, this was probably in 2023. We got together and we were just, or maybe it was that same week I came and met you in 2022. I met up with him, but he just spoke so highly of you. So clearly you did your due diligence in presenting yourself to be, yeah, just a man seeking the Lord and seeking to mentor and encourage the guys that you oversaw. So I just want to commend you for that because it was obvious. He told me right there, a huge smile on his face while he was saying it. So
I'm glad he told you that because he would never tell me that.
he should. I'll have to text him. Like, reach out to your big bro. Come on.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so kind of moving on since you were starting to hit on it. So what did you pursue after your bachelor's? So you graduated, maybe you got your master's, maybe you can hit on that. And I know you worked for USC for a year. Can
Yeah.
you talk about that time and then transition into what you're doing now, current
Yeah.
work?
Yes. Yeah. So I did get my bachelor's degree, graduating in econ and math. And then I did my master's degree in applied economics and econometrics, a fancy way of saying data and statistics. So I did that. And then after that, I worked for USC admissions for a year. I worked for the liberal arts college at Dornside College, and I worked in their admission department. So a lot of that was getting to travel all over the place. I actually got to meet up with Skylar in Philly on one of my work trips, which was fantastic. We had
That's
some
right.
pretzels. We had some other stuff at that. I forget the name of the that restaurant place, the one with all the restaurants.
Yeah,
Uh,
Reading Terminal
yeah,
Market.
yeah. Reading Terminal
Yep.
Market. So we got to go there. I mean, a lot of it was reading applications. Like that was definitely the main job, but a lot of it was going around the country talking about USC, telling people about the school, why we love the school, why you should apply, all of that good stuff. And then after that, reading applications, doing scholarship interviews, all of that good stuff. And also, I got to work with current students at USC who were tour guides, who were student panelists, who were all of the student volunteers who helped with the admission process. So again, when I talk about, like how AGO shaped my life, like I should have mentioned this earlier. Like I started off pre-med at USC, and don't get me wrong, like I feel like pre-med was a good option at the time, but when I was kind of evaluating like what I wanted to do, it made more sense for me, I think, to go into education because I was like, oh, I always loved teaching people, and I think that my time at AGO honestly confirmed that.
Hmm.
So anyway, I mean, it almost led to a career switch in that way. It was just a revelation moment. But anyway, so I worked for USC for a year. Then after that, I wanted to come home to help with family. And so I was looking for different jobs to apply to. Again, act of God, really. I went to an Iolani school reunion. Sometimes they have these, reunions. This one happened to be in Nevada, and so I went with actually another guy from AGO, Dylan. I brought him with me. He's in our family as well. So it was me and Dylan. We went to Nevada together. I brought him to this reunion because he always asked me, he's like, "Oh, Nathan, what is it like to go to Iolani?" And so I was like, "Okay, let me show you a little glimpse." So we went to this thing, and they were talking about, opportunities to give back to the community here at Iolani. And so I did some research, found this job, and I was like, oh, that'd be something that I'd love to do. I probably won't get the job, but we'll see what happens. And so prayed about it. And I think like again, it couldn't have been without God. Like, USC couldn't have been without God, AGO couldn't have been without God, and this Iolani job couldn't have been without God because, the pathway just opened in ways that I cannot explain. And the opportunity to come back, take care of family, again, opened in ways that I cannot explain. But I came back for the interview, got the job, and came here. And so now I'm the associate dean of students here at Iolani, which is a fancy way of saying that anything student related I help with. So my main job is to make sure that everybody's safe and healthy here on campus, and that mainly comes with enforcing student rules. So whenever people get in trouble, they get sent to my office. But it also means that I help with student activities. So last week was homecoming. We had our homecoming dance, our homecoming football game. We have something called the burning of the eye, where we literally set like a letter I on fire And so I helped to organize that. We have our senior trip to an outer island, Kauai, coming up in a couple weeks. So I do the, like, let's see, the student discipline part, the student activities part. And then, like I said, anything related to student facing stuff. So some counseling stuff, some, just checking up on students, making sure they're okay. Students are struggling a little bit in school. I try to help them out as much as I can. But the main thing is to be like an advocate for the students. Like if there is, something that they want to, bring up to the adults on campus, or if they, want to talk to a teacher through me, then that's how I try to support them. But I mean, again, like because that's my job description, I think, a lot of what I did in AGO definitely supplements that in terms of, how do I talk with students? How do I treat students in a way that's respectful, but also holds them accountable, right? We're also a Christian school. We're an Episcopalian school. And so, sometimes if it's appropriate, I do talk with students about faith or why I believe in what I believe in. We talk about the chapel services that everybody's required to attend once a week, stuff like that. And, like I said, if it's appropriate, right? But I think that those are good ways to, like I said, start conversations with students, get them involved in, maybe a little bit more difficult conversations, and open the way to glorify God, because I think that he's given me these experiences for a reason. So why wouldn't I hand that down to the next generation of students?
Yeah, that's so good. And it's just a reminder that the Lord's just always working in our lives, always preparing us for different things. A lot of the times it's not necessarily clear where he's gonna take us, but just even your time in AGO, you had no idea where the Lord was gonna land you in the end, but you have all
Exactly.
these skills that he's equipped you with, and you've refined those and fine-tuned those, and now you get to use them in this capacity and bless a ton of kids. I don't doubt it. So wow. Yeah. Thanks for going into detail on all of that. Outside of that, what else takes up your time, and what do you do outside of work? How has the Lord been speaking to you in this season?
Yeah. Yeah. So a couple things. I I helped to coach Science Olympiad. So I participated in Science Olympiad when I was a student here. It's a really good time. So that's one thing. I mean, like I said, as in the marching band, so I love watching USC football. Sometimes I have watch parties with my friends. Sometimes I'll still go surfing, still go boogie boarding. I mean, why not? It's 15 minutes away, right?
Yep.
And then I play saxophone in the worship band at church here, which is
Okay.
really cool. It's a really good time. It's something that you wouldn't really think of a saxophone being in a worship band, but
I love
I
it.
don't know. It's something that, I actually helped to do when I was in AGO. We had a Tuesday night worship at our house. And so I played guitar there, and I didn't really want to give that up after college. And so now I'm able to play sax, which is really cool. But yeah, I mean, I try to keep busy when I can, but also, I do always reserve, roughly Saturday night to Sunday night, like a 24-hour period, just to, observe the Sabbath, right? Rest, go to church,
Mm.
go to our young adults group that meets, all of that good stuff. I've recently gotten in contact with a good friend of mine named Reese, who's a pastor here in Hawaii. And so he's been wanting to do a church plant within the next couple months. So I've been not necessarily helping him out with that, but just, seeing how that's been going and watching how the Lord's been working in his life.
Mm.
But yeah, a lot of spending time in nature. I mean, it's what you would expect from Hawaii, right? And, spending time with good people, eating good food, and having good company.
Love it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, we're kind of winding down here, kind of come to the end of our time. And we obviously want to honor the time you've given us to kind of ask these questions. But one of the things we like to end on in these kind of conversations are like, what are your favorite aspects about your time in AGO? And is there like any specific memories that stand out to you?
Favorite aspects of AGO. I think one is that it makes good leaders, like I mentioned earlier, but it's because the guys in AG are resilient, and they learn resiliency through each other and through their faith. What I mean by that is, like, in my time at AGO, like I said, we went through COVID, we survived. We went from a membership of maybe 30 actives to maybe 6 or 7 after COVID. But then now, like you said, they have 13 pledges this semester, which is awesome. And I think the longevity of it, and just the fact that, the guys, it's leaders making leaders, which is really cool. And like I said, they do learn grit, and they do learn, how to support each other, how to keep each other accountable. That's one thing. I think the other thing is that, I mean, there's just nothing like it. I mean, I think, like, so my pledge class in particular, we were the Alpha Mu pledge class, and the four of us could not be different people. So one ended up being a civil engineer who's now an active on active duty in the U.S. military. One was a computer science major. Actually, another one was a fifth year grad student, or fifth year senior. And to me, he's like, at least at Pi, he's, in my time, he's like AGO's biggest success story. His name is Juge. Love the guy. He's great. He still goes out to all the different AGO events. But if you met him before he pledged, like, he was this really shy guy. But man, you see him now, and he definitely came out of his shell through pledging. And I think, like, what it does is it brings all of these different people together on the one thing that we have in common, and it really pushes you in that, like. The pledge process is kind of difficult sometimes, but I mean, it helps to really refine you in ways that other things can't. So that's one thing. Favorite memory, I think, I mean, there's a lot of favorite memories, but okay, I think one that really stands out to me is our senior night that we have the day before graduation. I've been to many of them, but basically what happens is at USC, the final exams end on Wednesday. There's a Thursday dead day, and then the commencement is on Friday. So on that Thursday, it's a tradition at Pi to honor the graduates of that particular year. And so through my time in AGO, I've seen many different renditions of what that grad night looks like. It's ranged from pizza party to a full out, like, photo booth and everything. The AGO moms get involved, but I don't know. I'm just so proud of the guys to see them graduate, to see everybody dressed up in our suits and ties one last time before they graduate. You see the California sunset. It's just so surreal to be able to experience that moment where you have this really big celebration, but yet it's the tightest group of, 15, 16 guys, right? All celebrating together, the maybe 4 or 5 graduates that we have. I got to do the little bro speech for Jason. I got to do the big bro speech for Jonathan and Jordan. And it's just a time of fellowship where we just come together and celebrate, a really, really big moment in such an intimate setting. And I'm just so proud of the guys to see how far they've come in their, whether they spend one semester with AGU or 4 years, and to see it all culminate in that one night all together, like I said, in our suits. Like, it's really just a good sight to see. And yeah, I'm really proud of the guys for how they've continued, and to see them graduate and grow up, and all the ways that they've changed.
I feel like you did such a great job at just encapsulating what AGO is all about. And just when you go through AGO, like, the impacts it really can have on you, and how it can continue to work through you and work through the next generations. And so I just applaud you for all the initiatives that you took too, as an active of AGO, but also as every other executive role. You said president, vice president, pledge master.
Yeah.
Plus you were a chapter advisor. You did it all. You did it all, bro. And yeah, just I'm really, really so encouraged to hear what you're doing now in your current work, and just your heart for people. That's really just a blessing to me. And so a lot of good words from you, bro. So thank you for hopping on. And
sorry. The other thing I will say, just because I thought about it, another thing that I really enjoy about AGO is that no matter where you go in this country, if you say AGO, people will welcome you in with open arms. I think I said that earlier, but that was about LA. But same thing with AGO people. There are some people that I had never met before, but I remember somebody connected me with somebody in Dallas, and I happened to be there for a USC trip. And I showed up at a restaurant, and he's like, "Hey, I'm going to meet you at the Pecan Lodge. Like, let's talk about AGO over some barbecue." And he was, I want to say Alpha 5 something or Alpha 4 something. He was from a while back. But I mean, I just texted this guy randomly, and he just showed up for some Texas barbecue, and that was great.
it was Joel.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I think that's who it was, because I remember we were back and forth about that. I think you'd reach out asking about someone in Texas, and I think
Yeah.
I think it
And
was great.
yeah, so we met up for barbecue, and then he's like, "Hey, why don't you hop in my car? We'll take a tour of SMU. You can meet my wife. Like, I'll bring you to my house. You can meet my dog. I'll bring you to the airport. I mean, it was a whole thing, right? And like I said, I had never met this guy before that day. But even like, when we would go up to Slow, I'd be like, "Hey, I'm a pie guy," and they're like, "Oh, welcome in. Like, come into our house. Let's go to the beach. Like, same thing with the Epsilon guys at SDSU.
Mm.
Like I said, you say AGO, you name it, and that really comes true at Founders Day. Like, I'm glad that we have an East Coast Founders Day and a West Coast Founders Day, but we or even at Pismo, and when we used to do it, the volleyball tournament as well. But yeah, I mean, just that too. Sorry, I just thought of that afterwards, but yeah, I mean, no matter what generation of AGO you're from, the guys will always welcome you in, and that's true too. If you ever come and visit me in Hawaii, I'll come welcome you with open arms for sure.
Well, we might have to take you up on that. And that's what it is. It's fraternity for eternity, right? Like that is doesn't matter the generation, it doesn't matter what chapter you're from. It's so and I have examples of that too of getting to connect with guys from different eras and different chapters. And never met him before, but I'm like, I feel like I've known you for a really
Yeah.
long time, and we just connect
Yeah.
on so many things instantly. So I love that story. Thanks for sharing that. Don't apologize for interrupting me. That was a great little way to tie this all up. And speaking of coming to Hawaii, I feel like we gotta have our next leadership retreat there or something. I mean, can you host us or
Yeah,
maybe
maybe a
just on
maybe a
vacation?
staff like a staff retreat, maybe like
Staff
just
retreat? I like the idea. A little Hawaii Founders Day, perhaps.
Maybe.
Can you house like 100 people? You have enough space for that?
Wish I did. But yeah, let us know, man. Even if you went camping on the beach, I'm sure it'd be great.
One of these days. I do hope to get out there one of these days. Well, Mr. Hue, Nathan, we're gonna let you go. My brother, thanks for
All
joining
right.
us today and sharing about your time in AGO and just how the Lord's working in your life and how you're taking what you learned in AGO and what the Lord taught you and putting that to practice and yeah, just blessing us and hopefully being a blessing to whoever else listens in. So we'll let you go for now and we'll see you on the next episode. Peace.
Thanks.